yesterday we left with the execution for cleanup scenarios. I would execute it once, so we'll see how the cleanup scenario is working. I'm closing my mod shop. It's executing the recovery scenario. It has executed the second. Okay, actually, it should be failed. Yeah. Okay, as it took so much time, it didn't fail. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so actually, the expectation was both the recovery scenarios would fail and it would execute the cleanup scenario, but the recovery scenario was
Okay.
okay. I would add only one recovery scenario which would fail the test case, and we'll see. I'll remove one. That will be closing and closing. Okay. I've removed one recovery scenario. So it will fail. This recovery scenario anyway will fail. We'll see that. Closing it. Okay, it's executing the recovery scenario. Okay, it shows cleanup scenario. Okay, sorry, I didn't add the logout steps too, so the cleanup scenario also got failed. Okay, and I've got another issue next test case. More than one control found. Okay, instead of this test step, I'll be giving some other test step because it's showing some error with the module. Um, it's better to go with any other test step. So otherwise, I have to rescan and do it everything. So I'll be going with the other test step like mm, what would be okay. Maybe clicking on apparel and shoes. That would be the test step I'm adding. Mm, okay, I'll add this testing, the whole testing. So now it would execute the cleanup scenario and it would execute the next test case without any interrupts. Okay, it's executing the cleanup scenario now. Okay, so this is how the recovery scenario and cleanup scenario will work. So I'll give you the overview. So from this execution, if from this execution, if we see, so it tried the recovery scenario. As it got failed, it executed the cleanup scenario, and so a cleanup scenario helps to execute the next test case without any interrupt. So it is setting up the application so that the next test case will be executing properly. So this is how it will work. So I'll give you the overview of recovery scenario and cleanup scenario, whatever we have seen from yesterday. So so that is the thing. So in order to show you how the cleanup scenario will work, I made the recovery scenario failed. So that cleanup scenario executed and the next test case executed without any hindrance.
Okay.
So that is the expected one. So the thing is, in order to execute the cleanup scenario, recovery scenarios have to be failed.
Okay.
So the test case will be failed anyway. So the only purpose of cleanup scenario is setting up the application, setting up the testing environment. So the next test case will be executing without any hindrance. That's the thing. Okay. I'll give you the overview. So in recovery scenario, so the recovery scenario helps Tosca to retry the failed test cases. It would be trying to make it pass. So we can have as much as recovery scenario we want, and um, it has some hierarchy. So in retry level, we have three different retry level: tested value, and test case. So the hierarchy would be like the first would be tested value, and the next test case, and then test case. So Tosca will execute the recovery scenario that has the retry level, which is tested value first, then tested, then test case, and it would be executing the recovery scenario in that hierarchy. And if none of the recovery scenario is working, even after executing all the recovery scenario, the test case is getting failed, means it would execute the cleanup scenario. So cleanup scenario is kind of an optional thing. So if you want to add, you can add. So cleanup scenario, same thing. We can have the as much as cleanup scenario we want for that particular test case, and it would be executing in top to bottom approach. And the purpose of cleanup scenario is to set up the testing environment to execute the next test case without any hindrance. So that is the purpose of cleanup scenario. So this is what we have seen in recovery scenario and cleanup scenario. So you can add, this is kind of additional thing, if you want to add to any test case, you are getting some intermittent issue or error, something you are getting frequently in particular test case. For that time, you can add this recovery scenario and cleanup scenario. Otherwise, it's not like mandatory thing. Okay, then today we'll see about uh, dynamic identification. So we have seen different identification thing, and one more will say about dynamic identification. So for example, I'm checking out this. Okay, I'm checking out this. Okay. So after making the order, we are getting one order number generated every time. So we will be capturing the order number using dynamic comparison or partial buffer. We will be capturing this number in a buffer. And if you see, if you go to, okay, we'll open this. Mm, okay. So if you go to the account and orders page, you can see the recently made order would be coming in the first place. The last uh, the last order would be coming in the first place. And just assume you want to you have the scenario of verifying this order number, which if it is coming in the first place, the newly made order is coming in the first place. So that is the scenario. So you want to capture this thing, this control you want to capture. So we'll see how to capture it using dynamic identification. So dynamic identification in the thing is in the sense. So in the property section, for example, we have inner text in the property, and but the inner text have dynamic value. So um, if you take this control, this container, this is the dynamic part. So it would be varying every time. Every time we make one new order, it will be varying, it will be changing. So in order to identify this, so for the inner text property of this container would be, this would be order number and this number, so which contains some dynamic part also. So in the place of dynamic value, we will be using some function like buffer function or math function or some other function, dynamic expression we will be using in the uh, property section. So using that, we will be able to identify that dynamic control. So that is the concept of dynamic identification. So I'll show you for this thing, for this container, how we can do the dynamic identification. Mm, okay, I have to scan. Okay, so this is the control, the first control, I guess. 330, yeah. So this is the control we want to capture, which is in the first position. Okay, inner text has some space, so I'll go with outer text. So that contains the proper value. So I'm going with the outer text property. So in outer text property, if we see, there is order number and the number that got generated, which is dynamic. So we are going to use outer text property only. So instead of this dynamic value, we will be using some function in order to match it up with. So in our case, what we are going to do is, so in the previous step, after making order, after checking out, we would be capturing the order number in the previous step. So after capturing the value, what we would be coming to this account and would be going to the orders page and would be verifying this control, this container we would be verifying. So what we are going to do is, in the previous step we will be capturing the order number using buffer. So we will be using that buffer function, the buffered value here instead of this dynamic value. So every time I make order, I'll be capturing the order number and I'll be using that order number here in the value of the outer text property. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to identify using the some function. It may be buffer function or math function or some dynamic value we can use. So for now, I've selected the order number and selected the property outer text and I'm finishing the script. So I'm creating one dynamic identity. So I've created one folder dynamic identification and creating verifying order. So what we would do, okay, I'll add the test step of capturing the order number after we are checking out. First will be this one. So here in this step, bring the order number after checking out, and after that we would be clicking on this account. So for now, I'm going to do it manually while executing the test case, clicking on this account and clicking on orders because I have to create the module again. So for now, I'm just doing it manually. Okay, screw these two steps. So after clicking on order, we have to do this. So we have created the module for that, and we'll see. So this is the created module. So I'm changing the name to. Okay, so here we have captured it using outer text property. So instead of this dynamic value, the number order number, I'm going to use the buffer value of order number. I'm going to call the buffer order number. So replacing that number with the buffer function, how it would work means, so after using that, what I will be doing, I'll be dragging and drafting, and I will be adding the test step in the next step. So verifying order number. So I'm verifying like exist is equal to. So I've changed the value to buffer number. Buffer value. I've inserted the buffer value in module. So how it would what means? So for in the, order number here, we are using we are capturing the order number. So the buffer order number will be created with the newly created order number. The order number buffer will be created. So in the next step, we are verifying that order number. So the in order so this module we are using here, right? So while Tosca executing that, it will look for the outer text order number, and in place of the number, uh, it would call the buffer value here. So it would call the buffer value here, and it will verify if the and in the next step it would verify the order number newly created is same the as the order number which is present in the top of the orders page. So this is how dynamic identification will work. Like we can use the dynamic values in our property in order to identify the control. So that is the concept. So this is one example using buffer thing. So in the previous step, we will be capturing one buffer and we will be using that in our property in order to identify that in the next step. So that so this is the thing. So if I you got the thing, you got the concept of using dynamic identification. So we used buffer here. So in place of you can use a mat function. So if you have any scenario like every time it would increase by one value. So for example, you have 10, the value 10, and it would be increasing by one every time. So you can use the mat function of plus one. So it's kind of additional topic again. You can use other identification method. So I just want to know. You just this is the thing you can use in your test case. Is in your testing dynamic identification. So we can go with other identification methods also, like parent control, anchor control. So those are the things. So just to know that.
Okay.
And if you can also use date function. So for example, you have one control that contains the property which has the value of some date, like it would change it to a current date every time you access the application. So that time you can in the property you can insert the date function, because every time the date will be changing, right? So in that time you can use the date function in order to give the dynamic value in property type. So this is dynamic identification. Okay. So then what else? Okay. So finally we have one more thing in test case, a result count function. So we'll see result count function. So if you see in this order page, I have numbers of details button. So details button, okay, okay, we'll go with the order number. Okay, so we have number of order number container here in the orders page. So you have the scenario of um, getting number of orders you have made till now. So all the orders will be here, and you want to get the number of orders you have made till now, till today. How many orders you have made. So so that time in order to get the number, we can use the function called result count. So in order to use that, what we have to do is, so this is the order number thing. Okay. So while using the result count function, I have to make sure that I have captured that particular control in using generic property. So in explicit name we saw, right, using generic property we have to capture the control. So in the same way, while we are using result count function, we have to capture the control using generic property. So why we have to capture the generic property means, I'll show you the example. Um, result count. Okay, I'm using result count function for this control order number, which is unique. Now it is unique. We'll see how it would show us. Result count, and we have to store up the value in a buffer. So I'm giving some value buffer name as count and action mode buffer. So we'll see. How to okay. I'll use this number instead of buffer. Okay. This is unique now. We have captured this control order number uniquely. So and I'm using the function result count. We'll see what it's going to show. So it has been set to value 1. So when we trying to use the result count function with the control that is unique, we will get the value 1 only, because unique means only 1 will be present, right? So we have to capture the control in dynamic way. So what I'm going to do is, so this outer text property only making it is in it as unique, so order number. So and what I'm going to do is, instead of this number, I'm going to enter wildcard, which means it's going to be uh, common for all the things, all the because all the order number as the static part order number, and dynamic part I'm going to ignore, which means I have made it generic. So it would be this property will be applicable to this container and this container. For any container, this property would be applicable. So I have made it generic now, that outer text property. And now I'm going to run it. We'll see how the count is coming. So count has been set to value 44. So we have 44 orders present in our order page. So we have to, while using the result count function, we have to use the generic property. So it would return the number of items that are present in our HTML page. So that is the function of result count.